Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herold here on Badlands Media. I'm your host, Jon Herold. I know there's some confirmation hearings going on, so I'm going to try to get through all this stuff as quickly as I can, but we're going to talk about all the important news that's been going on the last roughly 24 hours and a few things that we can probably expect to come. There's been some rumors about some future potential executive orders, so we'll go through all of that as well. But before we do, let's get a quick word from the sponsor of today's show.
Hey there, Badlanders. Do you love Badlands as much as you hate communism? Do you want patriotic apparel that's not made in China, but also won't make you look like a dork? Well, then we've got just the thing for you. Introducing an entirely new line of official Badlands gear made in partnership with the Culture Warriors at Rise Attire and Rise INTL. With 4 brand new collections of original artwork across a wide range of products to choose from. Spread the signal with deep-cut symbols from Devolution lore to the ghosts in the machine on the front lines of the Psy War. Wrap yourself in America the Beautiful with the warm tones and textures of Badlands National Park. To the eye of the storm in Mount Rushmore. This is premium quality streetwear, custom made to order from scratch just for you by the Patriots at our East Peoria, Illinois facility. Don't wait. Explore the entire store and order your new gear today at badlandsmedia.tv/rise. Represent Badlands boldly and proudly. This culture war ain't gonna win itself.
Hey guys, it's an easy way to support Badlands Media is by getting some merch and wearing it proudly. So we appreciate those of you who do so. Quick update on the deportation numbers. ICE updated their numbers. There was another 1,016 arrests and 814 detainers lodged, bringing the total to 5,537 arrests and 4,333 detainers lodged. We have a long way to go, but it's a great start, and I will be keeping you updated as those numbers continue to come out. A little elephant in the room from yesterday's hearing. Carolyn Levitt had her first press briefing, and they talked about this new program where independent media companies, podcasters, and whatnot can apply to get access to the White House and be in there and ask questions. I did apply. I know multiple people at Badlands did. I think they all applied individually. I applied as like an umbrella, like, hey, just give Badlands a seat and we'll probably rotate people out. I would love to get Ash out there permanently. I know Ghost is in the area. I would love to go at some point. I think it'd be great to just give people within Badlands Media have been doing this for so long an opportunity to ask questions. And I guarantee you, we would ask better questions than what the mainstream media is doing. And while I'm hopeful that we'll get an opportunity, and some of these other smaller groups like we will get that opportunity, the people she called as new media kind of rained on my parade a little bit. Take a listen.
And with that, I will turn it over to questions, and we will begin with our new media members, Mike Allen from Axios, Matt Boyle from Breitbart. Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Breitbart and Axios were the new media there today. And I saw some people, when I posted this on Twitter, responded by saying, well, they're just new to the White House or the press briefings. They hadn't had access before. They hadn't been allowed to ask questions. And that's not true. These people have been in there for a long time. Maybe they got kicked out for a period under Biden. I'm not even sure. But I know for a fact they were in there in Trump's last administration. One of the guys from Breitbart was like verbally berating Trump at one of these briefings. And a guy from Axios, I can't remember his name now. He's the guy that looked puzzled looking at the map or whatever. He had an interview with Trump. Like those aren't small time new media. Those are establishment media, fake news outlets. And I hope that's not what they consider to be new media. But then you see people like War Room getting Natalie Winters in there. That's a good sign. That's the new media. We're the new media, not people like Axios and Breitbart. But we'll see what happens. We'll see. The big news today, at least what most people are tuning into, are these confirmation hearings. The RFK Jr. is today. Tomorrow is Tulsi and Kash Patel. The one today with RFK Jr., it's been pretty entertaining. I've been listening to it most of the morning while I'm prepping the show and stuff. And the leftist media, or the leftist senators and the media, but the leftist senators asking these questions are just insane. And they're totally aligned with the media as well. This came out this morning. Somebody took a picture of a journalist's laptop or a video, and this is a screenshot of that video. And this is before the hearing even started, okay? Before the hearing started, this journalist had this typed up, ready to go article on her computer. RFK Jr. faces grilling on anti-vaccine comments and animal mutilation at confirmation hearing. Trump Live updates. How does she know before the hearing that he's going to be grilled on anti-vaccine comments and mutilation, animal mutilation? How does she know? Unless maybe it's coordinated with the leftist senators, the Democrats. But between Tulsi, and we'll go through some clips from the RFK hearing here, because there's a couple what I would call bombshells. But between Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Kash Patel, if I'm being honest, I am skeptical we'll get all three. I'm skeptical we'll even get two of the three. I would honestly be surprised if we get one of the three. Like, that'll be like, okay, that makes sense. We'll get one of those three in there. That doesn't mean we're not going to get them all in there at the end of the day. I do think at some point, after Trump allows this circus to reach its conclusion, he's going to pull the rug on it, and he'll do a recess appointment. Mike Johnson will recess the Congress, and Thune will recess the Senate, because I think you need both. I guess I'm not even 100% sure on that. But I do think he'll get these appointments in there. But we're going to have to watch the show. It's been entertaining. Not going to lie, it's been entertaining. One of the biggest bombshells I think that we got this morning was this one, having to do with the missing children. RFK disclosed that Trump has personally talked to him about the 300,000 children that have disappeared just over the last 4 years. Take a listen.
President Trump has personally spoken to me about locating those 300,000 children who disappeared over the last 4 years.
I don't think anybody has a fully accurate number, but it's hundreds of thousands. I agree.
And many of them we know have been sex trafficked and childhood slavery. And it is a blight on America's moral authority, and we need to find those kids. President.
So yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. Him talking to Trump. He disclosed that him and Trump have been personally having this conversation about finding these missing kids. And in the conversation, he's talking about how the kids have been sex trafficked and sold into slavery and whatnot. They're aware of what's going on. And the fact that they've even discussed resolving that issue, I think, is a pretty big deal. I like RFK, by the way. I do. I do not like his comments on abortion. He has flip-flopped on abortion. You can't really deny it. And the Democrats are pressing him pretty hard on that. Like, just last year, you were pro-choice. Now you're just pro-life, pro-Trump. What is it? And they kind of have a point there. They have a point. But I still want him pushed through. We'll see what happens. His comment there at the end of this clip where he's talking about, we have to find these kids in order to have the moral authority, or we can't claim to have the moral authority unless we take care of this issue and find these kids. It's kind of the same thing he says about abortion. Like, we can't be a pro-choice country and claim to have moral authority. So, yeah, but did I say that right? Pro-choice, pro-abortion, yeah. Pro-life is where we're going. And Trump is pushing this back to the states. I know they overturned Roe v. Wade. It's still concerning that he has that abortion stance. And also his vaccine stance. He's getting hammered on that too, because he is pro-vaccine, which is interesting. And I think it was Chris Paul who made this point. I should have pulled this picture up because it's a great point about the difference between him and Trump. Okay. Let me find the actual tweet here so I can read this real quick, because I don't want to misquote him, but it is a brilliant point, as I said. Does anyone ever ask RFK Jr. why he isn't anti-vax? He gets an awful lot of credit for being anti-vax, even though he isn't, by people who are furious at Trump for holding the same position. The difference between the two is that what Trump did regarding the vax will end the vaccine regime forever. RFK didn't do that. Weird, huh? And it's such a good point, because all these same people out there, the Tracy Beans of the world, who have like made it their life mission and tried to go against Trump in favor of DeSantis because of his vax stance and what he did while he was in office, operating in a different battle space where the media was just nothing but lies constantly. And he was basically forced to be pro-vaccine while giving everybody all the information they needed not to have him take it. All those same people that are against Trump for that are super RFK, even though he's not anti-vax. It's interesting. So that was a great point by Chris. If you're not following him on socials or his podcast, you're missing out. Let's go to the next topic here. Actually, I think I have a couple more things on this RFK, but this is one point I want to make. Leading up to this hearing and the hearings over these next couple of days, I'm seeing a lot of threats online to senators. They're like, if you don't vote in favor of these nominations, we're going to primary you and get you out of office next time you're up for election. And I think it's a stupid threat. It's got no weight behind it, because these politicians, they're in office because our election system is not fixed. What does it matter if we threaten to primary somebody in a fraudulent election system when that election system is why they're entrenched in office in the first place? We need to fix our elections first. And that brings me to these comments by Mike Johnson. I think this was yesterday even, but he's talking about elections in California, and it's pretty fascinating what he says here.
What about some of the seats that you lost in states like New York, California? Do you think you'll be targeting those seats?
Well, I mean, some of those districts are on the margin, and so they'll be, I think it's a target-rich environment for us in that regard. Some of those were heartbreaking losses. I mean, very small margins in the loss. The California seats were, and New York were particular frustrations for me because I spent a lot of time personally in those districts. California, they drug out the vote tally. California seemingly can't count votes like every other state and country in the world. It takes them weeks or months to tally the votes. And, it was a great disappointment because all three of those seats that we lost there, we were ahead on election day, and then gradually it was whittled away. It raises a lot of questions. We're not going to go back and relitigate that, but I'll tell you that there'll be a lot of attention paid to, you heard the president say when he was in California visiting the wildfires, they really need voter ID in California. When they need to clean up some of their election integrity measures, and that's something that there'll be a lot of attention paid to. But we are going to contest those areas, and I think we can win back some of those seats, and it's going to be a good thing for the country.
It's just a silly thing to say. We're going to contest these areas where there's election fraud, because it'll certainly allow us to win then, as long as we can test them and just look at them hard enough and let them know that we're watching. It's not going to work. We need to fix the system. And Trump is going through his list of promises, and on that list of promises is fixing our election system. He's going to give the government back to we the people at some point. He's got to address our election system. I don't care what he does. I've said this before. His presidency this term will be a failure unless he fixes our elections, because all the good he does can be washed away by establishment uniparty candidates or leftists or whatever if they steal elections for other people. We need to fix our elections. Something interesting that happened during the RFK hearing is, there's been no updates to the White House website in terms of executive orders that are coming out today, but there's a couple news stories on potential executive orders, and RFK Jr. disclosed one during the hearing. I don't know if many people caught this. This is what he said.
Is that the White House issued an executive order, I believe today, supporting the drug negotiations under the IRA. President Trump was very aggressive during his first term about negotiating drug prices. He has instructed me, and I've met with him repeatedly on as that we need lower prices than seniors in this country, and
So let me ask
others
you.
are.
Let me.
So he kind of discloses that there's a bill that Trump is signing coming out today or tomorrow. He's read through it, but it has to do with the drug pricing. And that's an interesting one. I'm curious to see what it actually says. If you remember back to Trump's first term, Trump is the one that lowered the price of insulin. I think it was down to $35 or something. When Biden gets in office, they erased that executive order that Trump put out there, lowering the price of insulin, and then it went back up a little bit. And then they came back in and did the exact same thing, and then took credit for lowering the price of insulin. Do you understand that? Trump lowered it in his first term. Trump removed that executive order lowering it, allowing the price to go back up so he could come back in, do the same thing Trump did, and take credit for lowering the price. It's raising the price and lowering it, taking credit for the lowering part. But yeah, I'm curious to see what Trump does with this, because our medical industry as a whole it's ridiculous. My mom actually told me a story yesterday that one of her friends got diagnosed with COVID. Okay, well, regardless of your beliefs or feelings about COVID itself, but her doctor called her and said she was willing to, or they were willing to prescribe this person ivermectin. And then they went to the pharmacy to pick it up or ask for the cost or whatever. And without insurance, the price of ivermectin was going to be like $1,000 or something crazy. And with insurance, it was still like $500. So now these medical institutions and these pharmacies and these drug companies are overcharging the heck out of these drugs like ivermectin. And it's stuff that we sell through one of our sponsors at a significant discount. I mean, you can get a pack of it for $100 or something, like a huge pack. So I thought that was interesting. But this is the stuff that RFK is going to do. But it's very interesting seeing how scared these people are of RFK Jr. when it comes to the drug price, and it's because they're sponsored. All these people are sponsored by the drug companies. And I have a tweet here. I got to pull it up. I forgot to pull it up earlier, but there's this video from Green Lives Matter, and it has to do with, yeah, here it is. It's Elizabeth Warren. Yep, Elizabeth Warren asking RFK Jr. not to sue the pharmacy companies.
You know, if you will commit right now that not only will you not go to work for drug companies, you won't go to work suing the drug companies and taking your rake out of that while you're a secretary and for 4 years after. It's just
I'll commit to not taking any fees from drug companies while I'm secretary.
No, I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies,
no,
and I'm not going to agree to that.
Drug
Senator.
Companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody.
You know,
I mean, can you imagine that? A senator, I mean, you don't have to imagine it, you just saw it. A senator's asking a potential nominee or a nominee, a potential member of Trump's cabinet, not to sue the drug companies. And this is one of the most corrupt things that happened with COVID is the liability waiver for the vaccine. Now, just for saying this, probably going to get taken down off of YouTube. Get our first strike on our new YouTube channel. That's stupid of me, but whatever. I'm going to pull up our YouTube channel just so I remember what it is. It's youtube.com/@TD Herold, I think. Hold for processing. Yeah, @TD Herold. youtube.com/@TD Herold. We'll see if it gets taken down. But anyway, the liability waiver that these companies got to sign so that nobody could sue them. Pretty interesting. They're worried that he's going to. So maybe those liability waivers won't hold like they think or something. I don't know. But we're going to keep going. I might come back to a couple things with the hearing that came out, but I don't remember. I think my tabs are out of order. This dropped today. We got news that Jack Smith, or the DOJ, is moving to drop Jack Smith's case against Willie Nada and Carlos de Oliveira. These were the reasons. So if you remember about a week or two ago, there was this big back and forth between the DOJ, Jack Smith, and Eileen Cannon about releasing the Jack Smith report. There's 2 volumes to it. They released volume 1. It wasn't really anything all that special. It was a lot of the same information that's already been released. But volume 2 was held back because of these 2 ongoing cases. And this is the part that I'm most curious to see if it happens, if they actually release this. But the story here, President Donald Trump's administration is ending the case against his former co-defendants in the classified documents investigation brought by former special counsel Jack Smith. The DOJ has stopped pursuing an appeal brought by Smith to revive the criminal charges against Trump's employees. The appeal had also sought to defend the Attorney General's ability to appoint special prosecutors, a long-held authority that Trump's administration has sought to undermine. Again, this is CNN, so might be a little biased to the reading of this. CNN reported earlier this month that Trump was not planning to pardon Nada and De Oliveira. Sources familiar with the strategy said a pardon would connote guilt, which I think is interesting because think of what Biden did. Biden pardoned preemptively a bunch of pretty shady characters, including Fauci and Liz Cheney. Adam Schiff. Did Adam Schiff? I don't remember now. But regardless, it's like, I don't want to pardon these people because that means they were guilty. And then you compare that to what Biden did. Anyway, the appeals court has not yet signed off on the Justice Department's request, which is in line with what the two co-defendants wanted as well. And then at the end, just to remind you guys, the charges brought by Smith against De Oliveira accused the former Mar-a-Lago employee of working alongside Trump and Nada to obstruct the investigation by attempting to delete security footage from the estate sought through a grand jury subpoena. Nada was accused by Smith of assisting former Trump with moving the boxes and the documents and whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty big news. Jack Smith's case is almost completely done. And then it's the review aspect where Trump yesterday, I think we went over the story. Trump is looking into it. They're doing an internal review, not only of the J6 stuff, but I believe we're going to get a special counsel into many of these things. This was pretty big news yesterday, and we're going to go through some of the actual details of this. Trump administration to offer buyouts to all federal employees ahead of return to office. Can I close this? Why can I close this? Well, it won't let me close it, but this is what's going on. The Office of Personnel Management sent out an email to everybody with a .gov email address. And this is essentially what it's a deferred resignation email. And I'll read through some of this. During the first week of his administration, President Trump issued a number of directives concerning the federal workforce. Among those directives, the president required that employees return to in-person work, restored accountability for employees who have policymaking authority, restored accountability for senior career executives, and reformed the federal hiring process to focus on merit. As a result, the above orders, the reform of the federal workforce will be significant. And because of these reforms, and like their 4 pillars, returning to office, performative culture, more streamlined and flexible workforce, enhancing standards, basically like, hey, government officials, you can't just coast through here anymore. If you are not doing your job well, if you aren't in line with our vision for what America is supposed to be, and you're not willing to come work in office, which those aren't difficult things. But if you're not willing to do those things, then you're probably going to get fired. But since we know, like you know internally what your ideology is, you know that you're trying to be deep state, whatever, trying to thwart the Trump administration, we're not going to allow that to happen. So this is your opportunity to leave in peace before getting fired. And this is exactly what they told them. If you choose to remain in your current position, we thank you for your renewed focus on serving the American people to the best of your abilities and look forward to working together as part of an improved federal workforce. At this time, we cannot give you full assurance regarding the certainty of your position or agency, but should your position be eliminated, you will be treated with dignity and will be afforded the protections in place for such positions. So they're not guaranteeing anything. Everybody knows going into this that Trump is going to streamline our government. He's going to get rid of all the BS that shouldn't be there. The Department of Government Efficiency is going to make the government more efficient. And so a lot of agencies and a lot of these roles may no longer be here in the very short future. Continue. If you choose not to continue in your current role in the federal workforce, we thank you for your service to your country, and you will be provided with a dignified, fair departure from the federal government utilizing a deferred resignation program. This program begins effective January 28th, which was yesterday, and is available to all federal employees until February 6th. If you resign under this program, you will retain all pay and benefits regardless of your daily workload and will be exempted from all applicable in-person work requirements until September 30th, 2025, or earlier if you choose to accelerate your resignation for any reason. The details of this separation plan can be found below. You just have to reply to the email with the word resign in the subject and hit send. And then that would be your resigning. I like this idea in principle. I don't necessarily like the execution of it. And it's mainly because of this part here. So they have this window to apply from yesterday until February 6th. So like a week or so, little over a week. But then if they choose to resign, they are going to get their full pay and benefits regardless of their daily workload, meaning they don't even have to show up for work. And they're going to get that through September 30th. Like they're going to get a vacation, a paid vacation with full benefits until September 30th of 2025. I don't like that at all. I don't want to be, that's our tax dollars. We're talking about making the government more efficient. We're talking about freezing federal funding and stop buying stupid stuff for other countries. There was a huge story yesterday, which is totally ridiculous, but we apparently spend $50 million on condoms for Gaza, and they were just going to use them to make bombs, to like balloon bombs to send over to Israel. I don't know. The story was ridiculous on its face, but the money was there. It was, the byline was condoms for Gaza or whatever. That is now frozen. That funding is now frozen. But why, if we're talking about making our government more efficient, why are we going to pay people through September 30th? There's got to be a workaround. I saw Elon Musk post about it on Twitter too. This is the longest they could extend that period without having to go to Congress to get more funding authorized. I don't know. I mean, I understand wanting these people to just go in peace, just take your leave, take your money, get out of here. We're going to buy you out. Don't fight us on it. But September 30th, that's a long time, guys. It's 8 months. I feel like that's not necessary. I don't approve of that. And I wish they would have shortened that up. I mean, 3 months I could see. Three months, go for it. 8 months is a long time to be paying people. But whatever. That is what it is at this point. And I'm sure they have their reasons. I know they're going to be saving us money in other places, but I feel like this is a significant amount of money, that payroll for people not doing anything for that long of a period of time. There's a big story yesterday. Everybody's freaking out. Trump freezing the grants, the loans, and whatnot. Everybody's freaking out because the Medicaid went down for a period of time. And I don't know why these stories keep popping up, these videos, and I can't get out of them. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is a story. States lose access to Medicaid payment portal amid Trump federal aid freeze. State Medicaid programs across the country reported Tuesday they had lost access to federal payment portals 1 day after President Trump announced a freeze on federal grants and aid. And there's multiple states that did this. They said they couldn't get into the portal, and the leftist media, the leftist senators, they all freaked out. Like Ron Wyden right here. My staff has confirmed reports that Medicaid portals are down in all 50 states following last night's federal funding freeze. This is a blatant attempt to rip away health insurance from millions of Americans overnight, and people will get killed. The program said that any funding directly to individuals would not be frozen. So whatever happened here was more of a mix-up, if it happened at all, and it wasn't intentional. But that's what I think happened. And it's very similar to a story that came out of one of the Air Force bases, because when Trump said that they were going to stop doing the DEI stuff, this Air Force base was like, okay, well, we're no longer going to teach our students about the Tuskegee Airmen, right? The all African-American, I think it was World War II. I don't know the full details. I didn't take the class on it, but it seemed intentional. It was like, okay, well, we're not going to teach about this great history from African-Americans in our armed forces. And they went public with that, and they attacked Trump over it. See, Trump doesn't even want you learning about this history. If I was embedded within our government and I saw this funding thing come through, when it specifically says, hey, we're not going to target these individual payments like Medicaid, I would shut down the Medicaid system and make it seem like that's not true for a brief period of time. And so that these liberal senators and the leftist media have those talking points. This seems like a little intentional sabotage. I'm speculating, no confirmation of that, but that's where my head's at. And in line with this story, a federal judge had temporarily blocked Trump's plan to freeze the federal aid. Judge will hold another hearing on Monday on whether to grant a longer pause. But yeah, U.S. District Judge, appointed by Biden, by the way, said she was granting a brief administrative stay that pauses federal disbursements at least until Monday after a group of nonprofit and public health organizations filed a lawsuit. Those organizations, the nonprofits and the health organizations, are the ones receiving that aid. So obviously they're going to sue and get upset over that because they don't want to lose that funding. Makes sense, but we'll see what happens. Skip that story. We already did that. Okay. Some speculative executive orders that we can expect over the coming days. Again, haven't seen any confirmation. And I guess I haven't checked the White House website to see if anything's come out since. No, nothing's come out since I started the show. So Trump is going to launch an anti-Semitism crackdown as he orders deportation of pro-Hamas students who terrorize campuses. President Trump is ordering the deportation of foreign students who took part in pro-Hamas protests on college campuses as he launches a wide-ranging crackdown on anti-Semitism. A new executive order will target resident aliens, including students with visas, who broke laws during demonstrations in the wake of the October 7th attacks in Israel. Trump said he would instruct his Justice Department to aggressively prosecute terroristic threats, arson, vandalism, and violence against American Jews. He added, to all the resident aliens who joined in the pro-jihadist protests, we put you on notice, we will find you, and we will deport you. I will also quickly cancel the student visas of all Hamas sympathizers on college campuses, which have been infested with radicalism like never before. Okay, I'm not going to get into the debate of the anti-Semitism or any of that stuff. But what I do think is interesting is leading up to the election, how many times do we hear the liberal media and the leftists and everybody say that Trump was literally Hitler? A million times. We heard that a million times at minimum. And here he is a week and 2 days into his administration, 9 days into his next term, and there's an anti-Semitism bill. How do you square that circle? You really can't. But I'm sure they'll try. They are awfully good at the mental gymnastics. But yeah, I'll have more on that once the actual executive order comes out. Because again, still speculative. Let's take a look at. Okay, this is another one I'm excited about. Oh, did I not have the story here? Oh no! Hold for process. I got to pull this story up because there's rumors that Trump is going to be signing an executive order on school choice that would also end funding for public schools that support critical race theory and other divisive measures in their curriculums, the White House said. Totally in line with a lot of their policies, so this makes total sense. And this is a topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart because I was actually talking to, before I started Badlands Media, most of you know I was a fundraiser for a Catholic school system. It's the same school system I went to. My dad works there. My kids go there. I'm a big believer in private education, Catholic education. And when I was working there, we were constantly fighting our government, local government, trying to get more funding for the private schools. And we weren't even asking for much. But if you're not aware of how it works, I pay taxes. My taxes go to fund the school system here in town that my kids don't go to. And then I also have to pay to send my kids to a different school, the private school. The private schools here in town, I don't know if this is everywhere, but I'm pretty sure it's probably quite similar. The Catholic school system that my kids go to, the cost to educate a kid is less. Like the average cost to educate per kid, if you compare the number, I'm just like off the top of my head, and I don't even know if this is accurate, but it's like 10,000 at the private school, it'd be 15,000 or 12,000 or 13. It's significantly more per kid at the public school, so it's not as efficient. But not only that, the grades across the board are better at the private schooling. It's just an overall better education that you get there for cheaper per kid. But obviously we don't get any government help, so we pay for it ourselves. So it's like double spending. I'm paying for the worst education for other people's kids, and I'm paying for my own. And so I've been looking for what Trump would do here, and I don't know. It's exciting stuff if he comes through with this. This was another campaign issue that he had talked about, But this is what is being reported. Again, haven't seen the details of this executive order. But allegedly, President Trump is expected to issue an executive order to boost school choice programs by freeing up federal government spending towards it. A White House official confirmed. He's expected to sign it Wednesday. The order would direct the Department of Education to prioritize the usage of discretionary grant programs for school choice and direct the agency to issue guidance on how much money to give districts and schools for K-12 scholarship programs. The order will direct the Department of Health and Human Services to issue guidance about states getting grants for families to use funding from the grant programs to support private and faith-based schools. And I love this. One of Trump's platform pledges was to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. And while he did not push school choice as an issue in his first administration, multiple states have embraced it in the years since. And this is how I think it should work. There should be, if the government is going to spend money on education, right? Like, why does it all have to go to one? It should follow the student. It should follow the families paying for it. That way, if I want to send my kids to a private school, or if somebody wants to, and they can't afford it, like, what do? They have to go to the public schools because they can't afford it. In a situation where the families get the money, like a grant or however it would work, think of what that would do to the competition in schools too. Schools that don't perform well, like, why as a parent would somebody send their kid to a public school that doesn't perform well over a private school that performs better, cost educates cheaper, if the money follows the kid anyway? The public schools that aren't performing well, eventually they're going to go out of business, or they're going to have to fix things. So I'm very excited about this one. I hope it comes through. It's crazy, but in North Dakota, Kelly Armstrong and a lot of the legislature here, they have some of the most liberal. I mean, maybe that's not the right way to put it, but it kind of is. They're very liberal when it comes to the education agenda and how it differs from what Trump campaigned on. Like, the state here, we overwhelmingly supported President Trump and Trump's agenda. But yeah, when it comes to school choice, they're like, nah, we don't want to do that. In Kelly Armstrong's his agenda thing that he put out, his budget proposal, he had a section in there called education and school choice, and not a single thing in there had to do with school choice. It was really weird. Not many people read those things, I know, but I did. And it didn't mention school choice anywhere but the title. So he just totally left it out. It was nuts. But anyway, we'll see what happens with that. In terms of an actual executive order that he did put through yesterday, the only thing on there, and this is a great one, protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. Absolutely banger of an executive order here. Across the country today, medical professionals are maiming and sterilizing a growing number of impressionable children under the radical and false claims that adults can change a child's sex through a series of irreversible medical interventions. This dangerous trend will be a stain on our nation's history, and it must end. It's absolutely right. Countless children soon regret that they have been mutilated and begin to grasp the horrifying tragedy that they will never be able to conceive children of their own or nurture their children through breastfeeding. Moreover, these vulnerable youths' medical bills may rise throughout their lifetimes, as they are often trapped with lifelong medical complications. It's wild that we actually went through this period where we were butchering children. I mean, they're not even old enough to vote. They're not even old enough to drive. They're not even old enough to buy alcohol, serve in the military, all these things. Half of them can't even feed themselves, and some of these parents are butchering them and changing their sex. It's criminal. It's criminal. But the actual part of this here, ending reliance on junk science. The blatant harm done to children by chemical and surgical mutilation cloaks itself in medical necessity, spurred by guidance from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, which lacks scientific integrity. In light of this scientific concerns with the WPATH guidance, they're going to rescind everything having to do with it. I mean, again, another campaign promise. And this was coming. Kind of could see it coming with all the DEI and the woke stuff going away. Kind of figured he'd go here, and very, very glad that he did. Let's see, what else do I got for you guys? Save that one for the end. It's kind of funny. Trump has now officially asked Elon Musk to go get NASA astronauts stuck in space. What? And that's just like a day after. And I think it was Chris Paul who pointed this out. It was a day after NASA was tracking a asteroid or a meteor or something they saw out there. And they ended up finding out it was just a Tesla Roadster that was floating through space. So they were no longer concerned about it after they figured out that it was just a Tesla. No big deal. Let's see. I know I got a couple more stories here before we get out of here. And then at the end, I have a thread I want to go through. Oh, this was a pretty big deal. Hegseth to pull General Milley's security detail and his clearance, and they're going to launch a review board. This is a big story. In addition, Hegseth has directed the new acting inspector general to convene a review board to evaluate whether sufficient evidence exists to revoke one of General Milley's stars in retirement. The review will focus on Milley's alleged actions to undermine the chain of command during Trump's first term. The Pentagon will also remove a second portrait of Milley. So they're basically shaming this guy on the way out the door. And I'll admit, I may have been wrong on Milley. Back in the day when we used to talk about this stuff a lot and like the kayfabe and who's playing what role, it was difficult for me to imagine, Milley not being aware of what was going on, especially at the time when I thought it was much broader. The devolution behind the scenes stuff. When I thought it was much broader than it really needed to be. But clearly, like over the last year or so, 2 years, and this is interesting. I mean, we knew the stories of what Milley did on J6 and the aftermath, and him going around Trump and calling his counterpart in China and being like, yeah, don't worry, we won't let Trump do anything. We're not going to. I mean, that's mind-blowing stuff. And you could look at it two ways. You certainly could, and we did for a long time. But yeah, it's looking more and more that we were definitely wrong about that. I see in the chat, Too Big for Bike says, wrong about Milley and Pence. I don't fight as hard for Pence anymore, but I'm still yet to see any actual evidence. And technically, I haven't really seen any evidence of Milley either, but I haven't seen any evidence of Pence being a bad dude either. Him being against RFK is not evidence, because his reason is the abortion ban. But yeah, we don't need to get into that. Rep Luna is introducing legislation to put President Trump's face on Mount Rushmore. I'm here for that. We do our GARTs every year. Deadwood, South Dakota, about an hour away from Mount Rushmore. I would love to see Trump's face on there. Absolutely love it. So curious to see if this actually gets through. If it does, how soon they'll start with construction on this. My only issue would be is let's wait a little bit until we get the funding situation turned around. You know what I mean? Because this would require funding. We'd have to set money aside to do this. And I'd rather that money for now go to fixing some of our debt crisis and some of these other issues. And then we can, once we have a surplus, we can do a project like this. But I totally agree he's deserving of it, 100%. But this is kind of also a political stunt in a lot of ways by Luna, which I love Luna. She's great congresswoman. But anyway, a couple more stories here, I think. What is this one? Already did that. Oh, we're pretty close here, guys. All right, I'm going to go through this thread, and then we'll get you guys out of here, because this was remarkable. This guy posted this yesterday, and I just want to show you the cognitive dissonance and just the balls on the mainstream media and some of these people that have been lying to us for the last 8 years, and especially the last 4 years. But for those who aren't aware of who Chris Cillizza is, he's a political commentator. I think he's on his own now, but he used to work for CNN from 2017 to 2022. Before that, he's with The Fix, The Washington Post, Meet the Press, MSNBC. They call him a political analyst, but he's a political hack. Like, that is what he is. He will gargle on the narrative of whatever the establishment wants him to put out there, and he will go no further. He's kind of on his own, independent now, but this is what he posted. And what's crazy about this, it's a mea culpa on the origin of COVID, okay? This is like the second or third time he's done this same thing. Like no joke. He did this in 2023 when I think it was DNI Haynes came out with the report, the short 10-page report being, well, we didn't really dig into the merit of the theories, but it's possible. We're not 100% sure which way, but it's definitely either the wet market or the lab. Okay. The CIA last week with Ratcliffe in there comes out with the new report from the Biden CIA. There was the analysis was done while Biden was in office, and it was his CIA. And they basically said, yeah, it kind of looks like it came from the lab. And this is what he said to this. And there's one tweet in here that absolutely blew my mind. And this one tweet alone should be the reason this guy never gets taken seriously again, and probably should wear some sort of special helmet for the rest of his life. But let's go through this quick. I screwed up. Back in May of 2020, I wrote how Anthony Fauci had crushed Donald Trump's lab leak theory for how COVID-19 originated. The CIA said over the weekend that they now believe the virus leaked from a lab. So a few thoughts. Here's a CIA spokesperson. CIA assesses with low confidence that a research-related origin of the COVID-19 pandemic is more likely than the natural origin based on available body of reporting, which, if you're keeping track, is what Donald Trump and lots of prominent conservatives, most notably Tom Cotton, have been saying for a very long time now. Yeah, I have noticed that. That is exactly what we've been saying for a very long time now, since it happened. And candidly, they have taken a lot of stuff for it, including from me. Yeah, haven't forgotten. My belief back then was that if this was a debate between Donald Trump and Anthony Fauci on the origins of the pandemic level virus, I was going to go with the guy who spent his entire career studying this stuff, not the reality TV star turned president. Kind of a backhanded thing to say about President Trump, except it now appears that the TV star turned president was right and Anthony Fauci was wrong. So without further ado, here are the wrong assumptions I made and how I plan not to make them again. And don't worry, I'm probably not going to go through this entire thing, but Minopulant in the chat says, John, press secretary says the OMB memo is rescinded, but freeze still in place. I don't know if I believe that. Let me see if I can look it up real quick before I continue, guys. I just want to see if this is accurate. If you get a link for that, how about you send the link for me? I'd appreciate it. I'm going to continue with this so I don't keep people longer than I need to. First and most importantly, I deferred to expert voices at a moment, May of 2020, when even they were making it up on the fly. It's not to say that Fauci didn't believe that COVID had originated in a wet market in Wuhan province. I think he absolutely did. But I should have been far more aware of the fact that Fauci, like the rest of us, was dealing with something he had never seen before, a once-in-a-lifetime, 100 years pandemic, and that by its very nature, this was an unpredictable disease. Do you guys remember during the Twitter files and some of the stuff that's come out over the last 4 years, like emails, back and forth emails talking about the conflict of interest between the funding of the NIH stuff that Fauci approved of and the research from the lab in Wuhan? What about, he's saying that he deferred to expert voices, the ones who were working with social media companies to silence alternative viewpoints on all these things. I mean, again, like I said, the balls on this guy to put this post together. I should have been far more aware of the fact. The lesson: be skeptical. This is what he's going to do. The lesson is be skeptical of experts or anyone else when dealing with a rapidly developing and changing situation where no one has the ability to see a 360-degree view. Just be skeptical of everybody. Instead of the way he's trying to get out of and like whitewash history of him totally supporting the establishment narrative on this is insane. But it gets better here. The other major mistake I made was that I let my belief that Trump just said stuff get in the way of the possibility that he could be right. My belief at the time was that Trump was just making it up. Like he wanted to blame China for the virus, and it having leaked from an infectious disease lab, whether accidentally or intentionally, made that case much easier to make. It never entered my mind that as president, it was possible that Trump has been privy to information not publicly available on the virus. That right there is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard anybody say. who is in media. And that says a lot. Think of all the ridiculous things people have said, but this guy who's been covering politics and at CNN for 5 years says it never entered his mind that a president would have access to more information than the rest of us. You know, the guy with the highest possible security clearance doesn't have access to information we're not privy to. Are you insane? It never entered his mind because he doesn't have one, clearly. I can't believe it. There's just 3 more posts here and then we'll get out of here. Do I think that's what happened? That Trump knew, like really knew way back then that COVID had come from a lab? Or was he just saying stuff and that stuff wound up being proven correct in the long term? Honestly, I'm not sure we'll ever know. I bet we will, sir. The lesson, just because Trump talks out of his butt a fair amount doesn't mean everything he says is him talking out of his butt. And that's the thing. You think he's talking out of his butt, but he's not. You're just too stupid to understand what he's actually doing, Chris. Don't disqualify the possibility of Trump telling the truth solely because he is a decidedly inconsistent messenger when it comes to the truth. That's not true at all. Just because you like to twist what he says and say it's not true doesn't mean what he's saying is actually not true. If you listen to him, pretty much everything he does say is true. That's what's fascinating. And you're trying to call him a liar. I wrote this all up in my nightly newsletter. You can read it via the link in my bio. Screw you, Chris Cillizza. You're the reason, you and all the people like you are the reason we had to go through these last 4 years of Biden. You're the reason we had to go through what we went through with COVID, because had you done any actual investigative reporting, none of this would have ever happened. We may have gotten to the truth, but no, instead you swallowed the establishment narrative and regurgitated it constantly, and you are part of the problem. And I don't understand how you have so many followers on Twitter. I don't know how anybody takes you seriously. I don't know how you're not in a padded room. My best Patrick Gunnels impersonation. I don't like you. And anyway, we're going to end on that note while I'm a little fired up. Get you back to the hearing. RFK, I think there's another one today, but it's not as exciting. But then tomorrow, the big ones, Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. So make sure you stay with Badlands Media. We're going to be providing coverage for all of it. And yeah, hit that thumbs up. Follow us over on YouTube, youtube.com/@TDHerold. Also, you can make sure you subscribe over on Substack. It's for free, dailyherold.substack.com. You'll get access to the newsletter, which will be starting soon. And yeah, thumbs up, share around. I'll be right back to read rants and boosts if there are any. Oh, and get your tickets to GART if you haven't yet. GART in Vegas, March 6th through the 9th. Going to be amazing. We're going through the list of speakers, finalizing everything. There are still some tickets available. So if you want to come, get on it. Badlandsmedia.tv/events. We will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern and see you tonight on the Power Hour, 10:30 p.m. Eastern with Burning Bright.
Let's get started.
That's what she said.
Oh, that's real good.
Why they stopping me?
All right, just a couple rants here. 12 Indie Boy, nice to see you, Ty. Cash answering questions about the lists. Can't wait. Popcorn ready. I cannot wait either. And then John in Connecticut, school choice still relies on the government's ability to take money from you at the point of a gun. Communism by any other word. Yeah, I mean, hey, I would love to not have any money taken from me. Trump says he's going to get rid of the income tax. Totally for it. But if the government is going to be spending money on school stuff, it should be fair across the board. And it should lie with the families or the kids being educated and not just go to some institution that forces kids to go there that can't otherwise go somewhere else where they want to go. The school choice is the future. I think Trump's going to do it. I mean, an executive order's coming. We'll see. I'll see you guys over in the chat for the RFK hearing. Thanks for tuning in, and see you tonight, Power Hour tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern.